Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be cutting and sewing this dress that you can see on your screen. I used 3.5 yards of sunray fabric to achieve this style. So I'll start by taking my points on my pattern paper. The first point I took was the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 11 inches. The next point is the distance from the shoulder to the under bust point, which is 14 inches. And the last point is the distance from the shoulder to the waist point, which is 17 inches. After doing that, I went in by half of my shoulder measurement. On that point, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope and I slanted from there into the neckline area. The next thing I did was to take my armhole depth. I came down from the shoulder slope by 8.5 inches. I'll make sure I have the same 8.5 inches on that point. After doing that, I'll connect the two dots into a straight line and I'll roll straight lines across. So this particular line is going to serve as my chest line. The next one is my bust line. The next one is my under bust line, while the last one is my waistline. So go ahead and label your lines. Next thing I did was to divide this straight line into two. I marked the middle point. On that middle point, I came in by half an inch. On the chest line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark that. What I'll do now is to use my ruler to connect from the shoulder slope to the half an inch that I came in with, and from there I'll connect to the points that I have on the chest line like this. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is to determine my neck width. For the width, it depends on how wide you want it to be. I will go in by about 3 inches. After doing that, I'm going to take my dart. I'll place half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5 inches. So I'll mark 3.5 inches on the waistline, on the under bust line, and on the bust line, and I'll connect the dots into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to take half an inch on both sides of the straight line. I'm doing that on the waistline, and I'll connect back to the bust line just like this. What I'll do now is to start placing my measurements. I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. I went ahead to add my stitching allowance of 1.5 inches. On the waistline, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4. I replaced my dart of 1 inch and I added my stitching allowance. After doing that, I'm going to connect from the chest line all the way to the waistline. So the next thing you do is to determine your neck depth. So if you check the picture on the thumbnail, the neck depth is supposed to go all the way to the under bust line. That's how this style is. But the person I'm making this style for wants to wear a dress to church, so she wants her chest line to be covered. So I just connected to the chest line first. Okay, so this is what I'm working with, but it's supposed to go all the way to the under bust line. Okay, so what I'll do now is to label my under bust line, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut. So I'm just cutting out the back armhole and the shoulder area. I've not cut out the neckline because I want to use this pattern paper to draft out the back. So instead of drafting all over again, I'm going to place this pattern paper on a fresh one. I'll leave my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches and I'll use my tracing wheel to trace out all the lines that I have on this front pattern paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and outline them just like you see me doing. If you don't have a tracing wheel, you can go ahead and retake all the measurements. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to mark the neckline. So the neck width is 3.5 inches. For the depth, I'll be using 1.5 inches. So what I'll do now is to use my ruler to connect from the neck width to the neck depth like this. So we have the back pattern. Just extend the neck depth all the way to the zipper allowance area and then cut out. So the difference between the front and the back pattern is the zipper allowance and the neck depth. Okay, so I have the front and the back now. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the front neckline. So I just went ahead to cut it out like this. So on the waist area, I went ahead to label the center and the side because I'm going to be cutting that out soon. So what I'll do now is to just trim this neckline area. I'm trying not to make it too deep. Okay, and then I'm going to cut out the under bust line. Okay, I'm cutting from the under bust line. I'll cut that out. It's going to serve as my band. After doing that, I'm going to close up the darts because I don't want to take the darts for my band. So I just went ahead to close the darts. Next thing I'll do is to place my tape on this shoulder area, and I'll divide what I have there by 2. After doing that, I'll connect like this, and I'm going to split it open, but I didn't cut it out completely. That's because I want to spread this part by just 2 inches. This is not necessary. If you don't want to add any gathers to the under bust area, you don't have to do this, but I went ahead to just spread it out by just 2 inches. You can do more than 2 inches if you want the gathers to be full on the under bust area. So what I did was just 2 inches. Okay, so after doing that, this is what I have. I went ahead to cut on my fabric. Okay, so I added half an inch to the base, I added half an inch to the neckline area. So what I'll do is to notch this part that I spread, so I know how to take in the gathers. So I'll notch on this end, I'll also notch on the other end. So I'm going to gather from the first notch to the second notch, and then that is all. So for the band area, remember I labeled center and side. The center of the band is on fold, and you can see that I added allowance all the way around the band except the center, okay, which is on fold. So I'm going to take out my pattern paper, and I'm going to open the band up. As you can see, I'll also split the front piece open. So after opening it up, this is what I have. So if your neckline is really deep, like if you connected from the under bust all the way to the neck width, just like it is on the thumbnail, your front piece is supposed to be 2, just like this. Okay, so what I'll do is to go ahead and gather these 2 inches. So I'll just gather from one notch to the other one. Okay, so guys, I've gathered the 2 inches, and this is what I have. You can see that the gathers is quite small. If you want it to be full, you can spread more than 2 inches. I went ahead to cut out the lining piece. The lining piece does not have the gathers. Okay, it's just the same wideness as what we have on the pattern paper without opening it up. So use your pattern paper to cut out the lining piece first before you open it up. And if you want the gathers for the lining, it's also fine. So I place them right side facing right side. I'm going to sew all the way around. After sewing, guys, this is what I have. You can see what it looks like at the back and also on the front. I'm going to bring in my band. Fold your band into 2 and notch the middle. Okay, so notch the middle. You're going to now place this on the center. Okay, so like I said, my client does not want our bust area to be open. Since I've already splitted it into 2, I'm going to overlap the 2. So I'm placing one and I'm pinning all the way to the end, and then I'm going to overlap this. I'll place it on the other one. Okay, if you don't mind your chest area open, you don't have to overlap it. Okay, so I'll overlap like this, and then I'm going to pin all the way to the other side. So for the band, you are going to cut out 2 pieces of this band. Okay, because we'll be using the other one as the lining. After pinning, this is what I have. So what I'll do now is to bring in the other band. Make sure you notch the center. Okay, and I'm going to place it on the center like this all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and sew. So after sewing, by the time I open it up, the rough edges will be inside the lining piece. Okay, I've gone ahead to sew in place, guys, and this is what I have. So guys, for the back, I've used my pattern paper to cut on my fabric, and I added half an inch to the neckline area, the shoulder area, and the base. So I have about 2 pieces here. I'll be using facing to turn the neckline for the back. Okay, so I'm going to use my fabric to cut, and I'll use it to pipe the neckline. After doing that, I'm going to place it right side facing right side with the front, just like you see me doing. I'll sew the shoulder. I'll also sew the sides using my stitching allowance. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that. So guys, I've turned the back neckline using my facing, and I've joined the front and the back piece together on the shoulder area and on the side. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the flay. To do that, I'll fold my fabric into 2, and then I'm going to fold it over like this because I want to cut out a flay. So I'm doing a 180-degree flay. If you want the down part of your dress to be really full, you can do a 360-degree flay. So to know what to cut on the waistline, I went ahead to measure around the waistline of my half length. What I had is what I'm going to divide by 4 because my fabric is folded into 4, and I'm going to place it like this. Make sure you add 1 inch to it for stitching allowance, okay? So I'm going to mark all the way like this. So this is going to be the waistline. The next thing I'll do is to determine the length of my dress. To do that, you can either take out the half an inch on the waistline. The half an inch I used was 17 inches. So I'm taking out 17 inches. You can use that to mark out the length of your dress all the way around. Or another way to do that, this dress has 2-step flay. I already cut out the longest one, which is about 22.5 inches, and I'm using the same process to cut out the short one. So I'm going to determine how short I want it to be. It can be like 16 inches or 17 inches because I'm going to weave the base. So I decided to make it 18 inches, okay, because I need to also join it to the half length. So I'm marking 18 inches from the waistline all the way around. So this is the same process that I used to cut out the longest one. So what you do is to cut out the long one, or you cut out the short one first and you place it on the long one and then you cut. So after cutting out, guys, this is what I have. What I'll do now is to place both the short and the long flay on each other, as you can see me doing, and then I'm going to sew the waistline together. I'll also sew the sides together just to put everything together, okay? After doing that, I'm going to now sew this around the waist area of the half length. Just go ahead and arrange everything in place, and then you're going to sew them together. I've gone ahead to do that, and I sewed all the way from the waistline to the base. So the next thing I'll do is to just go ahead and fix my zipper in place. After doing that, I'm going to cut out my sleeves. To cut out the sleeves, my fabric is folded into 4. The wideness of the fabric is about 11.5 inches. So what I'll do now is to go down on this other side of the sleeves by 5 inches, and on the upper part I'll come in by 3 inches. I'm just going to connect like this. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. The next thing I'm going to do now is to measure all the way around the armhole area, and I'll mark my round armhole circumference. After doing that, I'll add stitching allowance to it. I'm going to add 2 inches to it, okay? So from the armhole area, I'm going to cut all the way to the base. After cutting, this is what I have. The length of my sleeves is 30 inches. So what I'll do now is to open my sleeves up, okay, and I'm going to bring in my elastic band. So I want to add elastic band to the sleeves, okay. I'm going to open it up, and then from the base I'll go up by about 9 inches, okay. I'm going to mark the 9 inches all the way to the end. So you must not do 9 inches, you can do more than 9 inches, you can do less than 9 inches. For me, I'm just going up from the base by 9 inches. I'm going to mark all the way like this. I'm going to sew my elastic band to this straight line. So the elastic band you cut out should be the exact measurement of your wrist, okay, and you're going to sew. As you're sewing, you're dragging, okay, to form a gathers like this. After sewing, this is what I have for both sleeves. The next thing I'll do is to arrange my sleeves in place, and I'm going to sew it to the armhole area of my dress. So guys, the next thing we'll cut and sew now is the under bust corset. For the back, I'm going to cut the way I did for the front. I'm going to cut out the waistline, so we have the band for both the front and the back. So the zipper is going to be at the front this time, so I'm going to cut out the zipper allowance from the back piece, and then I'll also go ahead and label the center and the side. So this time around, the center back is going to be on fold, okay, and then I'm going to close up the darts because I don't want to take darts for the band, okay. So now that I've done that, I'm going to label the front and the back so I don't get confused. So we'll start by working on the front. So for the front, I'm going to open up the darts and I'm just going to cut it out. Remember, I placed one on the other one just to be able to pin it down. So I'm going to cut out the dart completely, okay? After doing that, this is what I have. So I'll be using 1 yard of shiny face for this. What I'm doing is marking my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches, as you can see. So I'm going to now place the center front and I'll pin it down. I'm going to mark about 0.75 inches on both sides, and then I'm going to place the side front, as you can see, and then I'll pin it down. So I'm making sure that I have at least 1.5 inches in between these two pattern paper, okay? So the next thing I'll do is to determine the length of my under bust corset. Okay, so I'm going to go down by about 5 inches. If you want it to be really long, you can do more than that, but I want to have like a basque waistline in front, so I'm doing 4 inches. So you can see me placing my tape on the pattern paper and I'm going down by 4 inches, so I'm extending the pattern paper, okay? So after doing that, I went ahead to rule a straight line across the 5 inches. The next thing I'll do is to determine the length of my basque. So for now, I'll be marking 7 inches. So I'll mark 7 inches just like you see me doing. On this side, I'll come in by my stitching allowance, which is 1.5 inches. I'll mark that. After doing that, I'm going to place my tape like this. So I'll slant from the 7 inches to the stitching allowance like this. After doing that, I will extend the 1.5 inches in between the pattern paper. This is going to serve as my dart, okay? I'll extend it all the way down like this, and I'll find the middle of this 1.5 inches, which is about 0.75 inches, okay? I'm folding my tape into two to mark the middle because I'm going to split the middle open. So after doing that, I'll just extend the middle line all the way. So when I'm cutting on the middle line, okay? So on the upper part, I'm going to add half an inch, which is going to serve as my joining allowance, because I'll be cutting lining piece for it, okay? I'll connect like this. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. So my camera stopped recording while I was cutting, but on this middle line, I just plated it open. So this is what I have here. I went ahead to use the main piece to also cut out lining piece for it. So what I'm going to do now is to arrange them in place. As you can see, these are the two center fronts and I have the two side fronts. So what I'll do is to place them right sides facing right sides, as you can see me doing, and I'm going to go ahead and sew. So I'll be sewing using the 0.5 inches that I have on the sides. I made it 0.75 inches because I want it to be wide enough for my boning to pass through, because I want to add boning to the front. That is why I opened the dart earlier. So I'm going to pin like this and I'm going to go ahead and sew. I'll also arrange the lining piece just like you see me doing. I'll pin them right sides facing right side, and I'll go ahead and also sew. So for the back, guys, I went ahead to fold my fabric into two and I extended it by 5 inches. The back does not have the basque waistline, so what I did was to extend it by 5 inches and I added half an inch to the upper area. So make sure the front and the back is the same. Aside the basque waistline, what you do is to place the side of the front to the side of the back and make sure they align, okay? And the center back should be on fold because the zipper is going to be in front this time. So I folded in the darts for the back, so that way I'm not going to take in my darts for the back. So I have two pieces. One is the main piece while the other one is the lining. I'll just go ahead and sew all the way around. So I'm gonna to stitch the darts for both the front piece and the lining piece, as you can see. So if you want to create two boning channel, you can just open the seam up, iron it flat, and then sew on a straight line, making sure that what you're sewing is wide enough for your boning to pass through. But I want to create just one boning channel, so I'm going to place them together and fold them down, and then I'm going to sew on a straight line, okay? I'm doing that for just the main piece. After sewing, this is what I have. So what I'll do now is to pass my boning through the channel as you can see me doing. So make sure the boning is about half an inch shorter than the main fabric so that you'll be able to sew both the main fabric and the lining in place. Okay, so I'm going to place the main fabric and the lining right side facing right side as you can see me doing. I'm going to pin all the way around. After pinning, I'll head over to my sewing machine to sew. I'm going to leave a little bit of opening on the side, which I'll use to turn everything inside out after sewing. After sewing, guys, this is what I have. I went ahead to sew and iron, and I also ironed my zipper allowance in place. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to fix my zipper in place. So I'll be using this zip. Okay, I'm going to just sew it all the way and I'll cut off the excess zipper. Okay, after fixing my zip, guys, this is what I have. So I'm going to open it up for you guys to see. So you can open it completely and then you can close it like this. So I've also gone ahead to sew the back just like I explained earlier. I just sewed all the way and I left opening on the side, which I used to turn it inside out. The next thing I did was to place the front piece on the back piece and I stitched using my stitching allowance. After stitching, guys, this is what I have. Okay, all you have to do is to weave the inside, and yeah, that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like this video, leave your questions in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.